A familiar situation. You spend half an hour scrolling through anime lists, and in the end you either rewatch something old or turn on some forgettable show just as background noise. Iconic titles like JoJo, Monster, or Violet Evergarden constantly pop up, and every single time, you skip them. I've been through this countless times myself. JoJo pushed me away with memes and poses. Monster felt way too niche, and Violet Evergarden was something completely unknown to me back then. But at some point, I finally sat down and watched many of the shows I had been avoiding for years, and honestly, I really regretted not doing it earlier. Today, I want to talk about anime I postponed for years, what exactly stopped me, and what I eventually got out of it. I've watched over 150 titles, so this isn't theory, it's pure personal experience. My own barriers, my own doubts, and what came out of it in the end. If you also keep putting certain anime off, there's a good chance you'll recognize yourself in this video, and maybe finally find a reason to watch something you could never bring yourself to start. Enjoy. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Let's start with a true style icon, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. The first barrier for me was the episode count, around 190 episodes. That's a serious threshold before you even decide to start. Second, the art style. Araki originally drew the manga in this wild, exaggerated way, and David Production preserved and amplified it in the anime. For some reason, that style just didn't attract me. Add to that seasons where the color palette changes drastically, like Diamond is Unbreakable with its psychedelic skies. And of course, the poses, the memes, the entire JoJo culture. It all felt distant to me. I understood that it was fun, but the main barrier was the story format. Not one main character, but an entire Joestar dynasty. I usually don't like fragmented storytelling where there's no single continuous plot. After watching JoJo, my opinion changed completely. JoJo really is a cult classic, and my fears turned out to be insignificant. The first season felt strange and experimental, but at the same time very unique. JoJo is not just muscular men and dramatic poses. After watching all the parts, I can confidently say, this is a truly unique style and a complete lack of fear when it comes to experimentation. Why should you give it a chance? First, characters. Charismatic protagonists and antagonists. Since they change almost every season, each Joestar is well developed and has a distinct personality, and the villains are just as strong. Second, the story. Each part is its own adventure, with a new era and a new location, from the USA and Japan to Italy and Egypt. Third, the battle system. Araki is an absolute genius. Most fights in JoJo aren't about raw action. They're about creative approaches, strategy, and unique abilities. It feels more like chess than combat. And finally, style. From character designs and visuals to the way the story is presented, and especially the music, it's pure gold. If you've been postponing JoJo for a long time, I highly recommend giving it a try. Mob Psycho 100. Mob Psycho 100 is a title I'd seen everywhere, but never actually started. One of the reasons was the art style. Ironically, that's exactly what makes it special, but it still pushed me away. The second reason was simple. I'm not a big fan of spirits and psychic themes. Let's start with the main point. The art style turned out to be not just a strength, but a killer feature. When a show relies heavily on extremely dynamic scenes, simplification is unavoidable. Because the entire show is built around this style, moments where the art becomes simpler for the sake of speed and spectacle are barely noticeable. In many anime, detailed art makes simplification stand out immediately. In Mob Psycho 100, because of its style, those transitions are almost invisible, which makes every scene feel larger, more dynamic, and visually cohesive. On top of that, the studio behind the show is Bones. They know how to do action, not just visuals and effects, but choreography and pacing. Story-wise, there are 3 seasons, and the story is complete. Mob is the strongest psychic in the world, who just wants to be a normal middle schooler. He works for a fake psychic, exorcises spirits, does routine jobs, until real antagonists appear and push the story forward. It's a fun adventure that isn't afraid to tackle serious themes. There's a lot of humor, interesting characters, and plenty of drama. Unlike typical shonen protagonists with clear ideals and abstract goals like getting stronger, Mob doesn't really know what he wants. He fully understands how powerful he is, and is afraid of his own abilities. At its core, it's a story about self-discovery and finding meaning. If you've been putting it off, give it a chance. Monster. This anime deserves an award for being niche, a legend of its time, and not only of its time. Like many long anime, 74 episodes is a serious commitment. It's also a 2000s anime, which shows in the art and voice acting. But all of that turns out to be completely insignificant compared to what the anime actually is. The story follows Kenzo Tenma, a Japanese doctor working in Germany, a talented neurosurgeon with a brilliant career and a fiancée, the hospital director's daughter. One day, he defies management and saves a child instead of the city's mayor. After that, he loses everything: his career, his relationship, and his social status. Years later, Tenma realizes that his decision led to a terrible mistake. The boy he saved turned out to be something far darker than he ever imagined. Now, a doctor who once swore to save lives must deal with the consequences of his choice. It becomes a hunt that forces him to ask himself how far he is willing to go, and whether something like this can even be fixed. Monster is a psychological thriller with detective elements and the dark atmosphere of 1990s Germany. The tone is heavy and dramatic, built around moral dilemmas where every decision has consequences. The characters are incredible. The story is full of intrigue and mystery, and there are many plot twists. This is one of those classic anime we call masterpieces for a reason. The one serious issue is pacing. In the middle, the story slows down, and some secondary arcs feel stretched and unnecessary. It can feel tedious at times, but if you push through, the payoff is absolutely worth it. Kaiji. This is where things get really interesting. Kaiji is severely underrated. People barely talk about it, and its popularity is almost non-existent. I'm a huge fan of psychological games with high stakes, and yet Kaiji somehow never caught my attention. The art style is very specific. Sharp noses, elongated faces, old-school visuals. I was convinced it would be boring and mediocre. I couldn't have been more wrong. With full honesty, Kaiji is one of the best anime I've ever watched. If you missed it, I don't just recommend it. I strongly insist you watch it. The story revolves around debt, gambling, and how far people are willing to go to escape it. Kaiji is an ordinary loser who becomes a guarantor for a friend's debt. Now he's forced to participate in deadly games where the stake is his life. The games look simple: card-based rock, paper, scissors, balance beams, pachinko, but the rules always have hidden traps, and the system itself is your enemy. Each game is a psychological battle where you have to calculate opponents, exploit loopholes, and risk everything. What truly hooked me wasn't just the plot, but how masterfully the author plays with your nerves. You can't watch this anime calmly. The tension is overwhelming. Kaiji is an extremely honest protagonist. He's not a genius. He doesn't see the future, and he isn't a perfect strategist. He makes mistakes, panics, falls into traps, and ends up in situations so hopeless that you can barely believe he'll survive. And just when things seem to go his way, everything collapses again. The anime constantly plays with hope and despair, and you never know how things will end. If you skipped Kaiji because of the art style or lack of popularity, you're missing one of the best psychological thrillers in anime. Just try it. A Violet Evergarden. This anime crossed my radar a long time ago, and then I completely forgot about it. I avoided it because I wasn't at the right age to understand stories like this. No action, no clear adventure goal. Just a slow, emotional drama. A girl who writes letters didn't sound interesting to me back then. But when I finally watched it, I realized how much I had missed. Violet Evergarden is a story about learning how to feel. Violet is a former child soldier, raised in war and used as a weapon. She knows only how to follow orders and kill. Her commander's last words, "I love you," become a mystery she desperately tries to understand. She becomes an auto-memory doll, a person who writes letters for others. Through other people's stories, pain, loss, and love, Violet slowly learns empathy, guilt, and what it means to be human. Each episode tells a separate emotional story. A mother writing letters to her daughter years in advance, knowing she'll die soon. A soldier trying to apologize to the family of the man he killed. A girl unable to express her feelings out loud. And the visuals are absolutely stunning. Kyoto Animation turned every frame into a work of art, from landscapes to facial expressions. If you avoided it because it's too slow or just about letters, give it a chance. It's one of the most emotionally powerful anime you'll ever watch. These are the anime I postponed for years and later regretted it. If you have something like that on your list, don't repeat my mistake. Just try. If the video was helpful, like, subscribe, you know what to do.